Mr. Gaudet was elected as the District 3 Metro Council member in 2020, bringing expertise to the council in areas such as strategic planning, executive management, and community resilience. In addition to his elected role, Mr. Gaudet is a director at V. Graham, a corporate financial management consulting firm headquartered here in Baton Rouge, leading the firm's strategic growth initiatives. During his first term on the council, Mr. Gaudet has focused on advancing infrastructure needs, increasing affordable housing production, and sponsoring quality of life improvement efforts. He was recently elected without opposition to a second term on the council. Following Mr. Rowdy's presentation, we will open for questions, which are reserved only for working members of the press and members of the press board. We will conclude promptly at 1 p.m. All right. Please help me welcome Mr. Rowdy Gaudet.
Thank you much. Let me get set up here. All right. I feel like I need a elevate here. Thank y'all very much for allowing me to come and present today, and many thanks to Holly for connecting with me on what I feel like is an extremely important topic for the future of East Baton Rouge Parish, an item that will appear on the November 5th ballot. But as you can imagine, one of the things I've been going around the community when I'm talking about our plan of government amendments is that on this ballot you have everything from presidential down to mayor-president. We've got a couple of tax renewal issues, so it's been a challenge to generate a lot of interest in the community because this is a very policy-heavy initiative. But again, what I would say is one that's critical to the future of our parish. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to be giving around the community. I've scheduled a series of meetings across the parish, and I'm going to speak today from that PowerPoint, so I'm going to be referencing some of these amendments. Apologies, I don't have the visual aid to show you, but I'm going to talk through some of the highlights of these amendments. But sort of bottom line up front, what I want to get across is while I'm going around this parish, and this is a very informational presentation, talking through the amendments, their intent, what it is they're trying to accomplish by amending our parish constitution, what we're trying to achieve. I want to be very clear that as I go across the community, my intent is to convince voters that this is a ballot measure that is for their consideration, for a yes vote, for their favorable consideration. These amendments were produced largely from a series of 2 years worth of work by a very bipartisan committee. They put together these amendments through the course of numerous public meetings and lots of public input. And then I'll touch on in just a minute where I went around the community a couple of years ago along with some of my council colleagues to present what those amendments were and get feedback. And so what I'm presenting on today, what's on the ballot, is actually the results of all of that public input in those public meetings. So I'm going to do very quickly, and I will stay on time to leave 10 minutes on the back end for questions. Just an overview of our East Baton Rouge Parish Plan of Government. I'll talk a little bit about a very brief history of this effort to get these amendments forward to the ballot on November 5th. And then I'll touch on the high points of these proposed amendments. And there are amendments throughout the entirety of the document, but I'm going to touch on some of the high points. So first off, what is our plan of government? Why is it so important? Well, it is our parish constitution. Our plan of government lays out the functions and the duties of the executive branch, the legislative branch of your local government. And so this document was adopted, the current plan of government adopted back in 1947. It's been amended 17 times. You all will likely remember back in 2014 there were some amendments to reorganize our Department of Public Works. At that time, 2014, there was a single director over all of the various public works agencies, and the Holden administration came forward with a series of amendments to install directors over each of the different divisions of DPW, and that was a large effort for them to undertake. And of course, probably one of the most important things that I highlight during my presentation around the community is the only way amendments can be made to our parish constitution, to our plan of government, is with approval of the voters. So what I'm highlighting today, again, comes from the work of a lot of good folks, but it is on the November 5th ballot, can only be approved by a vote of the people. I'm going to take you back very quickly, just a brief history, to 2017. At that time, Councilmember Donna Collins Lewis put together an ordinance to create a plan of government study committee. I see Representative Barbara Freiberg here. At that time, Councilmember Barbara Freiberg. That committee consisted of 3 members of the Metro Council. Forgive me, Ms. Freiberg, were you one of the 3? And she was one of the 3. So thank you very much for your work on this. So 3 members of the Metro Council. Mayor President had an appointee. The Parish Attorney's Office had an appointee. Chief Financial Officer for the City Parish. You had the Baton Rouge chapter of the NAACP. You had the Greater Baton Rouge Federation of Civic Associations. LSU Law School, Southern Law School each had appointments. Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and the council administrator. So the intent in the creation of that committee, very bipartisan effort, and a good cross-section, frankly, of our entire community. That group, after a couple of organizational meetings, started meeting monthly in open public forums in the council chambers, and they literally went through our plan of government chapter by chapter. And there are presently 11 chapters within that document. They undertook the effort to do everything from very administrative changes, out-of-date references in our plan of government. When the document refers to the mayor president, it always refers to he shall do this. They made a change, he or she, for obvious reasons. And so they went through and again, made very administrative updates, and then had a lot of deliberation about more substantive updates to the document. And those are the ones I'm going to highlight today because what's on that November 5th ballot is largely a result of the work of this plan of government committee. So that committee met between November of 2017 and June of 2019. So a year and a half, almost 2 years worth of work and meetings to come forward with a series of amendments throughout the entirety of our plan of government documents, a comprehensive review. The results of that got us into 2020, and if you all remember, at that point, public meetings of any kind were shut down around February, March of that year due to COVID, and so the amendments themselves sort of held over. And then when I came into the council with the current council in 2021, along with 6 other new members of that council, I talked with Councilman Collins Lewis, asked if I could pick up the mantle essentially and start getting some input on the work that this group had done, this plan of government study committee had done over the course of 2 years. She, of course, was in agreement with that. And so I spent the better part of 6 months traveling around the parish, hosting public meetings at libraries with civic associations, other groups, to, at that point, present the amendments that the committee had come up with, but not in an influential manner. I was simply saying, this is the information, the amendments that committee came up with. What is your input and feedback, general public, on these items? For instance, an at-large council member or 2 at-large council members was one of the items that was recommended by that committee. During my series of meetings in 2021, it became evident to me that the community wasn't ready to see that initiative move forward. There's various levels of feedback, but it became evident to me that that was not something the community was going to approve. So in 2021, in August of that year, I brought forth 3 amendments to the Metro Council. The first amendment was what I call administrative changes, as I referenced, administrative changes throughout the entirety of the plan of government. The second item that I brought to the council dealt with the executive branch, changes within the mayor's office, mayor president's office. and the third was a legislative item. So I brought 3 different ballot measures before the council, before the Metro Council, for their approval in order to get on a March 2022 ballot. At that time, in August of 2021, the current council said they were not ready to advance those 3 items. And I will offer up that some of the feedback I got from bringing those forward to the council was, number one, you have 3 separate items. Those items should be brought forward as a single ballot measure. That was feedback I received. And then number 2, because I was in August of 2021, those, if they had been approved, would have appeared on a ballot in March of 2022. The other feedback was, put this on a ballot that is populated, is going to have a high voter turnout, and frankly, put it on a ballot, to me, that my name would appear on. And so the timing of this current effort is very intentional. The feedback that I received from that 2021 effort brought forth that some changes needed to be made. Some of the amendment items were things that folks wanted more information on. And again, they asked me bring it forward with on a ballot that will have a high voter turnout and one that your name appears on. And that's what the November ballot is, although slight caveat, no one qualified to run against me, so my name will actually not be on the ballot, but the intent was there. So let me dive into the amendments. The first thing I would like to say is some of the feedback that I've gotten about the proposition language. The Secretary of State has updated Go Vote. If you don't have the app, get the app. You can certainly go online. The proposition language for these plan of government amendments is crafted in such a manner, one that I frankly am not proud of. It is legal speak. It is something that I think general public reads and does not garner the information that's intended, which is, do you support amendments to our parish constitution? I have the ballot language in my PowerPoint slide. I encourage you to go look it up. I made efforts to amend this language. Unfortunately, those efforts cannot proceed because this has already gone forward before the bond council, and so the language of the proposition that will appear on our November 5th ballot is what it is at this point, in spite of some efforts to clarify and frankly make it a whole lot simpler. If you look at the state constitutional amendment that will also be on the November ballot, it is very clear. The question is, do you support an amendment to, and it outlines what that amendment is to do. Unfortunately, in this instance, the language for the plan of government is not as clear-cut, and so it is my intent to go across the community to speak to as many folks as possible to lay out what this means, okay, what the amendments are. So I'm going to take a quick swig, and then I'll get into the amendments. Essentially, the amendments that are being brought forward are an effort to make our government more efficient, more transparent, and from what I believe, more responsive to the needs of our residents. So generally, throughout the entirety of the document, we have made a series of administrative updates and changes. We have some out-of-date references. We have some references to previous constitutions for the state of Louisiana. Those are being removed. I mentioned the he or she, so pronoun changes, things like that. So those appear throughout the entirety of the document and are part of the reason why we're doing this as a single ballot item. In Chapter 1 of our document, our plan of government currently refers to areas of our parish as rural, urban, and industrial. Well, that was in 1947, that was the case. That was true in East Baton Rouge Parish. And many of you probably remember the days when Bluebonnet was not what Bluebonnet then was not what Bluebonnet is now. Now we use the terms incorporated, unincorporated, industrial still applies. So in the plan of government, we're updating the language from rural and urban to be incorporated and unincorporated. And then under that section in our plan of government referencing unincorporated areas of our parish, it says that the parish cannot provide street lighting in unincorporated areas. So what that produces is, within the city limits, your local government can pay for and provide street lighting. When you get into the unincorporated areas, and the example I use from District 3, which I represent, is Burbank Drive. When you get along a long stretch of Burbank Drive, which is unincorporated, and many of these stretches will not be developed, there's no street lighting. Because there's no special lighting district to be created, because there's no development going to occur, and so therefore no tax base is created. And so in this unincorporated part of our parish, as you can imagine, an unlit section of, a long section of undeveloped road, things like illegal dumping occur quite often. And this is all because in our plan of government, it says in these unincorporated areas, the city parish cannot pay for street lighting. And so we're simply removing that street lighting reference from that parish to allow for your local government to provide street lighting in these areas. Now, we're going to have to find a way to pay for it. There's still logistics on the back end, but simply to allow your local government to do something like provide street lighting. So this is one of those, making government more efficient and more responsive to the needs of our residents that I feel like is sorely needed in our parish. Moving into Chapter 2 of the Plan of Government, which deals with the legislative branch or governing body, the first change we're going to make is to require that anyone who wants to qualify to run for Metro Council must have been a resident of the district they want to represent for at least 1 year. For at least 1 year. So residency requirements is the intent behind that. And that again goes to this responsive to the needs of your residents. You should know the needs of the community, the district that you're seeking to represent. So you have to have been a resident of that area, that district, for at least 1 year prior to qualifying for office. This language does not appear in our current plan of government, residency requirements. This is something that I will say is a national best practice. If you look at other local government constitutions, residency requirements are very broadly found in these documents across the country. And so we're implementing that here in East Baton Rouge Parish. And as you can imagine, it prevents something like, hypothetically, I don't win Council District 3. Well, I'm just going to move 2 miles down the road and then I'll run for the next district. It prevents that sort of gaming the system, if you will. Compensation for council members. Within Chapter 2, council members presently, the language says council members earn $1,000 per month. That is the salary of Metro council members, because that reference, that dollar amount, is contained within our parish constitution. What we're seeking to do with these amendments is to strike that reference to a specific compensation amount and then treat compensation for council members the same way we treat compensation for the mayor president, for the constable's office, where it is set by the governing body. It is set by the governing body through an open and public, in an open forum and through a public process. And so the removal of a specific compensation amount is the second substantive change to the legislative section of the Plan of Government. The final one I'll mention within the legislative branch is that the Metro Council would adopt ordinances to govern both reporting and qualifications for people who are seeking to be members of boards or commissions. The council has numerous appointments to boards and commissions that serve our parish, that receive city parish dollars, and there's currently no requirement for those boards to report on what work they're doing, and there's no requirements for who can serve on those boards. So someone on a planning commission or a board of adjustments, for instance, may need a special kind of qualification or educational background to understand what it is that board is being asked to do, the responsibility of that board. And so we're implementing where the council would put in reporting requirements for those boards. You report on a particular basis to the Metro Council, and then also qualifications if you're seeking to be appointed as a member of that board. Moving to the Mayor President's chapter, and this is the one I think has garnered the majority of the attention thus far. I'll start with residency requirement. The same thing applies for the executive branch. We're actually going to say if someone is seeking to be a mayor president, 2 years a resident of the parish prior to qualifying for office, so a 2-year residency requirement. Changing the chief administrative officer, which is the position that is currently in our plan of government and that currently the mayor president hires, changing that role to be a city parish manager. This position, the city parish manager, would have education and experience requirements put into the plan of government. And the duties of that city parish manager would align with what city managers and county managers across the country do, which is run the day-to-day operations of our local government. Presently, the CAO position, Chief Administrative Officer position, does that function, runs the day-to-day operations with the departments, as well as the policy side for the Mayor President's office, as well as, frankly, the politics side, which is relationship with council members and messaging in the community. The CAO covers all of those, and the intent behind this is, well, the services that are being delivered to all of you and to all of the residents of our parish are critically important, and we should have a qualified and professional manager who solely focuses on the improvement of those services and how they're delivered. And then a second position that's going to be made within the Mayor President's office is a Chief of Staff role. And that Chief of Staff role can handle the policy side, the public engagement and outreach side, and the politics, the relationship with council members and others. So you're taking the current duties of the CAO and essentially splitting it into 2 roles, with one of those being a professional manager. One of the statistics I've been using as I'm talking about that in particular, because that, again, is something that a lot of folks have gravitated to when we're talking about these amendments, is that 73% of cities, towns, and counties throughout the United States that have a population of greater than 2,500 people have established a position for a professional local government manager. I would impress upon you that East Baton Rouge is outdated in not doing that, and our model of the all-encompassing CAO is an outdated model. And so the city parish manager I will reference was also a result of that Plan of Government Study Committee, bipartisan Plan of Government Study Committee. They looked at other local government constitutions across the country. That was what they felt was a national best practice, and they presented that recommendation. And I agreed with them and got public feedback that having a professional manager over our departments was a welcome addition to our plan of government. As I referenced, you've got the addition of a chief of staff position, and then simultaneously there's a section that would add an executive council position to the mayor president's office. It would be a single position. That executive council role would report to, be hired by and would report to the mayor president, and would not be a member of our current city parish attorney's office, which is an existing office and reports to the legislative branch. Because the attorneys from our current city parish attorney's office represent the client, the parish, they report to the Metro Council. So the intent in adding an executive council position under the mayor president's office is to give that independent legal advice to a mayor president candidate, something that currently doesn't exist. And unfortunately, we've had instances where a parish attorney has been, in effect, caught in the middle, being asked for advice from the executive branch and then being asked by the legislative branch, well, I am your client, you must tell me what the discussion was. And so to eliminate that, we're adding an executive council position under the executive branch. Last change I'm going to highlight for the mayor president's office would be the addition of a mayor president's state of the parish address. That is what it sounds like, just like a State of the Union address at the federal level, just like the State of the City, State of the State address at the state level. We presently have an understood tradition where the mayor president provides a State of the City Parish address, I think in this very room, to the Rotary, which is a wonderful tradition and would not need to be eliminated. But not everyone in the public has an opportunity to come and sit and attend that meeting. Not everyone in the public has an opportunity to vet all of the ideas that are presented during that very important address. They can catch the highlights on the news, they can pick up bits and pieces, but what this would do, this addition to the plan of government, would make it an open forum in the council chambers in a specially called council meeting, providing more transparency and providing the public, frankly, the opportunity to hear that State of the City Parish address and provide their input. And so that section is added here. I would add regarding that particular provision, that was not a recommendation of the Plan of Government Study Committee. That was as a result of, again, just looking across the country at what other local governments do. The transparent provision of that sort of information was something that a lot of governments do, and frankly felt like it was a really positive thing to bring forward. I'm going to jump forward to, in the Plan of Government, this would be Chapter 8, but it's the chapter on our finances. So presently, the council receives the executive budget on November the 15th of each year. So as a council, we meet, we are presented with 350-page budget document on November 15th, and we have until December 15th to review that document, to ask department heads to come forward and present on their budget for their various departments, and essentially 30 days to vet the budget. The provision that we're talking about here, the proposed change, is to essentially add more time on the front end of that review. So instead of the council receiving the budget on November 15th, we would back that up 31 days to October 15th. And then instead of the council having to adopt or change the budget by December 15th, we push that date back to the last day of the year. So you effectively are adding about 45 days to the budget review process. And look, again, this is something I say to a lot of audience. We receive it on November 15th and ask to vote on it by December 15th. Well, right in the middle of that is Thanksgiving. Right in the middle of that is a lot of folks taking time off, going and traveling with their families. And so, again, the ability to have transparent meetings around what those budgets look like, hear from department heads on what their metrics are, how they're meeting them or not meeting them, is condensed within that window. And I would dare say this topic has come about in previous councils and is certainly something that this council has had a lot of discussions about. So effectively adding 45 days to the budget review process is the intent behind those changes. The last one I'll touch on is we currently do not have a chapter for our purchasing department. When the Plan of Government was created, a purchasing position was under the mayor's office. We have, over the years, for obvious reasons, the purchasing department is critical for procurement processes, for obtaining goods and services and contracts. We have beefed up that department, and it's never had a chapter dedicated to it. So we actually are adding a chapter to our Plan of Government. We go from 11 chapters to 12 because we're adding a chapter for a purchasing department. This doesn't create any new duties, doesn't create any new positions. It simply removes it from the mayor's chapter because that department is substantive enough that it warrants its own. I want to highlight that I will be going across the parish in conjunction with a lot of my council colleagues to do a series of public meetings. And so Tuesday, October 8th, we'll be at the main library. Tuesday, October 15th, Fairwood Branch Library off of Old Hammond Highway. I had a meeting scheduled for October 17th in Zachary. Just prior to this meeting, we're moving that date for the Zachary meeting to October 22nd. There was a conflict in Zachary, a large community event I just simply wasn't aware of, so I didn't want to conflict with something that would prevent folks from coming to that meeting. So we're updating the Zachary Branch Library meeting to October 22nd. And I'll get, for media purposes, I'll get an updated graphic out shortly. It's being worked on now. October 24th, the Baker Branch Library, and then finally Monday, October 28th, will be at the Blue Bonnet Regional Library. So that's 5 meetings across the parish to present exactly what I'm talking to you about. A little bit of the history of the Plan of Government, why it's important, and then talk through these proposed amendments. And have a conversation with the community from my vantage point about why I think they're critically important. I had a slide promoting early voting. Starts October 18th, goes through October 29th. It just certainly encourage folks to go and vote. And I will, let me pause before I open it up for questions, because I'm going to go back to a provision with the city parish manager that I failed to highlight, and it is important. Within the language that's being inserted related to the city parish manager is a provision that says the council, the Metro Council, would confirm that hire. And apologies, I intended to highlight that when I talked through it. So the position would be hired by the mayor president, but would require majority approval from the members of the Metro Council, from the legislative branch. And again, due to the importance of that position, due to the experience and educational requirements around it, and frankly, due to the fact that it is the services that are given to our public every day, many folks on the legislative side in particular felt like having the legislative approval on that was critical. And so that language is featured in there. None of the other positions that I referenced, executive council, chief of staff, would require legislative approval, but that city parish manager role does. Okay, I will open you up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
With all these different chapters that you were saying, is this all going to be in one amendment?
Thank you. It is a single ballot item, yes.
All or nothing?
It is all or nothing, yes. So everything from the administrative to the substantive changes are all contained within a single ballot item. And I'll go back again to 2021 when I had split it into three. I had administrative as a single item, executive branch, and then legislative branch. And again, the feedback that I got was 3 is too confusing, too many. Folks will not understand what if one passes, the other doesn't. They won't understand what they're being asked to do. Bring it forward as a single ballot item. The vast majority of these are largely administrative changes. Now, I don't want to diminish. There are very substantive changes in here, so I'm certainly not diminishing that. But having it contained in a single ballot item was a lot of the feedback that I've received.
And also on that, have you faced any opposition on it? And can you explain any of the concerns that you've been hearing from people?
I wouldn't, there's no formulated opposition that I'm aware of. There's no group that's, actively campaigning again that I'm aware of. I would say I've gotten a lot of inquiries about what are the specifics, what are the details of this, why is this being done. I've been asked several times about, well, what's the partisan motivation behind some of these, city parish manager, for instance. And again, I go back to that talking point of there was a bipartisan committee. They spent almost 2 years reviewing this document, and largely the proposals, the amendments that are coming forward to our public to vote on are a result of that committee. So this is not Rowdy or other folks sitting in a room and formulating what should we do and crafting it. It's a very public process. It was vetted over a very long period of time with lots of public input. Yes, ma'am?
I'm going to read my question.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I applaud your goal to be more transparent, and all taxpayers will certainly appreciate that. However, the proposition, as she mentioned, presented to the voters is not transparent. The proposition reads as one amendment that the elderly and people have to go to their computer to find out about all the different amendments that are one amendment. And would you please explain how this is transparent?
So I am to repeat the question, and I apologize. The question was, number one, the proposition, in your opinion, is not transparent, and the language is confusing. Do I summarize that? I want to make sure I summarize it.
It's not transparent.
It's not transparent, correct.
How do you explain that?
So you will not find me disagreeing that the language of this proposition could use some severe improvement. It is a frustration of mine that I didn't catch it on the front end. Okay, so I'm going to take the hit for this. While I'm not the author of the language, I'm disappointed at what the language actually is. So there's a number of challenges behind presenting this to the public. The first being, again, I go back to this ballot, this November election contains presidential, which, as we all know, is kind of sucking all the air out of the room, a mayor president's race, and others that are garnering some attention and some media coverage. This being very policy heavy and something you have to almost dive in on to fully understand. I wish the language could be changed. I made an inquiry, can I amend that language and make it a lot simpler? And unfortunately, the process had moved to the point where I cannot. So it is my charge now, it's my charge as I go across the community and as I offer to speak to various organizations, to be transparent about that, to be transparent that I wish it was different. I hope folks are not confused by it, and my intent is to explain what's behind this proposition language.
You could remove it. Couldn't you remove it from the ballot?
I don't know legally if you can, so I don't know. I'm sorry, her question was, could you remove it from the ballot? And I don't know legally the answer to that question. I would say the information and the amendments are of such an important nature for the future of our parish that I think we should proceed with it. And I'll work my tail off to educate folks about it. Yes, ma'am, Rep. Freiberger.
First of all, I am so excited that the council has finally brought to the public some of the things that we were dealing with 4 or 5 years ago. That committee that looked at the plan of government, you couldn't find 12, 15 better people in this city to represent all aspects of the city. The city manager, critical. The 45 days for the budget, critical. The attorney that represents the mayor, I think that's also important. And speaking from a legislative point of view now, I know how difficult it is to put wording on a ballot because we have that problem. The question is, with all that we're doing with the city parish, do we see that as an increase in the budget of the city parish when you add an attorney to the mayor's office and a city planner? Do we see that as, do we know what that might cost us in the budget?
So the language in the plan of government to change the CAO to a city parish manager, to insert a chief of staff role and an executive council role, that language, changing our constitution, doesn't provide for a change to the budget for the mayor president's office. The mayor president, whoever that individual is, sets a budget for their office. And within that budget, they fund the needs of that office, the personnel of that office, and they can select what positions, what candidates rather, fill the positions within that office. And so a mayor president could come in if hypothetically these amendments pass November 5th. Whoever was to come into office in January can change the budget for the mayor president's office. You will find me saying if a city parish manager is enacted, if this does pass from the voters, we should give a critical look to the salary of that position and how we can recruit a top quality city parish manager. The council just 2 weeks ago received a report about salaries and benefits, a full compensation study, and the results of that study were staggering. The benefits that are paid to city parish employees is unsustainable. It is, in my opinion, something that we absolutely need a quality manager to come in, evaluate, and be able to roll out what a new salary and compensation plan is for all employees. And so, to shorter answer your question, the mayor president, whoever that is, will set a budget for their office, and the council will determine if that budget is quality or not. Yes, ma'am.
Back on the city manager position, you talked about that the mayor will hire the person subject to confirmation by the
Correct.
council. What happens if the individual is hired's performance is deemed unacceptable? Who is responsible for having them move on?
Yep. So the question was, there's legislative approval for the city parish manager. What happens if the individual in that role is not performing? The language says the mayor president fires, has the ability to fire that individual. Does not require approval for that. The position reports to the mayor president. There is a confirmation process on the hiring side, but the mayor president can fire, change the role, whatever it may be. Are you raising your hand? Yes, ma'am. No, I'm sorry. This young lady's with media.
Yes, so I was going to ask, as far as the changes in the mayor president office, with the roles, what will that be the mayor president?
Okay, yeah, great point. The mayor president, I'm going to incorporate this into my talking points, remains the CEO of our parish. The mayor president absolutely sets a vision for where we as a community wants to go and is responsible for the implementation of that vision. Part of any administration coming into East Baton Rouge Parish is a recognition that service delivery to residents is a critical component of achieving a vision. Certainly there are other aspects, economic development, recruiting of businesses, how and where we develop all of those things. The delivery of services is an absolutely critical component. And so the mayor president remains as the chief executive officer of this parish and sets that vision and demands the execution of that vision within the parish. I want to make sure I'm coming to you. Any other media? Okay, Mr. Kinney has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Rowdy. I don't have any reason to believe that you don't have the best interests of the city of Baton Rouge at heart.
Good question. Okay, no.
Okay. But I'd like to get an understanding, or see if we can have an understanding about the language on this ballot. I've been in this business for 51 years. This is the most offensive language on any ballot proposition I've ever seen in my career. And let me read to everybody exactly what it says, because it took you 14 minutes to talk about what it says, okay? And there's not one word in this ballot proposal that deals with any of the proposition items that you discussed. Not a word, okay? The lady over there says, you must bring a computer into the ballot box or go to CSU to understand what this says. This is offensive.
I'm
to
sorry,
the
what
voter.
is your question?
Okay. I'd like you to defend the language. When you said that you're not happy with it, you're not embarrassed with it, do you think it adequately explains the merits and details of the plan of the amendments? Because when I see it, it doesn't do that at all. Now, you said you
I think that's, yeah, I think you're, I mean, honestly, I feel like I addressed it in that I took some ownership of this language, wished it could be amended. Unfortunately, we're at the point where bond commission has approved, and it is on the ballot. And so, other than the comments I previously made, I don't think there's anything else to add to it. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Rowdy. I have two yes or no questions.
Yes or no questions?
Yes or no? When you reference public meetings that happened, I think the last one was 2 years ago, to get feedback from the citizens, yes or no, are the comments that were submitted by the citizens at these public meetings available on the East Baton Rouge website for the taxpayers to review what comments were given? Yes or no?
Yes.
And where might we find those?
There are videos posted on where the plan of government is. I recorded a couple of the meetings that were done, Blue Bonnet Library specifically.
Were all of them recorded?
Not all were recorded.
Okay. Is there a compilation of the comments submitted, yes or no?
No.
Thank you. Second question.
Compilation of comments from the original set of public meetings was her question.
Meetings to get input
That's right.
into this document that is now on our ballot. Thank you. Second yes or no question. If this ballot item passes related to Metro Council salaries,
Okay.
that component, if passed, will the council members be able to raise their own salaries without a vote of the people? Yes or no?
Your question is, will the council, if this were to pass, be able to raise a salary, their salary, thank you, without a vote of the people? And the answer to that question is yes.
Thank you.
So I'm going to close because I think we're close to 1 o'clock. I think some of the spirit of those questions is what some of the community are wondering. Is there something behind these more than what I believe? This is the duty of your legislative branch of government. This is what we should be doing. We should be evaluating the way government is delivered to you, and we should be absolutely looking for ways to present to you improvements. And so my intent in presenting how these amendments were formulated, the transparent process they went through to reach the point where we are, is to say these are quality amendments. They are beneficial for the future of our city and parish. They are not in any way partisan. And so, again, I would offer up, I think they're worthy of a yes vote on November 5th. So I am grateful. Oh, no, got one more? Wait, got one more? Can we squeeze it in? Better hurry.
Real quick, Rowdy. Just curious, as far as you said, you don't think this is the most efficient way to get information out to the voters. Moving forward, what would you like to see done as far as language? And we've heard some concerns here, and splitting up the amendments into a couple initiatives. What do you
Sure. So, I mean, specific to this, look, learned a valuable lesson. Specific to the language of this one, I believe there could be efforts in the future, pending that this one is successful, to bring forward some additional amendments. And so, you go in having learned some lessons from this effort, and be able to achieve a little bit simpler ballot language in the future. So, always looking to continuously improve. Holly, do I need to do anything to close it out? You do. Thank you all for the opportunity and for the information and questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Next Monday, we're going to have a candidate forum with the East Baton Rouge Mayor President candidates with Sharon Weston Broom, Ted James, Sid Edwards, Nathaniel Hearn, and Steve Myers. Just a gentle reminder, questions are available for members of the press and members of the press club only. All right, thank you.